welcome again to Meet the Author, Meet the Witch. My name is Heather Powell. I am from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I am good friends with both of our presenters tonight, which is why I'm here today. I'm also a big fan of Newcastle. This is my 6th visit. Love this city. And stand the band if anyone's a fan. I am the host of the Friday Night Rave podcast, which is why they asked me to do this as well, which talks about horror movies. So, I don't know, if you want to talk about horror movies later, I'll be around. But I am not the main guest tonight. Our first guest is a Wiccan, and I'm going to say her name hopefully properly. HarKeTae Green will be joining us, so please come on up. Cool. I'm so excited to hear about your journey and what we will learn today from you. Also joining us is 3-time published author, as well as a man of the buskers and many, many short articles and stories in various horror magazines, Mark Iveson. So we will be doing some couple of questions with our 2 guests. It will be about 30 minutes in length, give or take. If you need to get up, please do whatever you've got to do, it's fine. At the end of it, we'll have a chance for general questions. If not, if you don't feel comfortable asking your question in a big group, we will all be hanging out. Again, if you want to talk about horror movies with me or you, whatever you prefer to do. All right, so have a seat. Awesome. Are you both ready?
No.
Well, no, that's okay.
Movie trapped.
Well, I was planning. You were here.
We're just blaming it on Mark who's filming the event.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be fun if you didn't have the traps. So, okay, first of all, can everybody hear us okay? Yeah? Awesome. Thank God for good acoustics, huh? All right. So, Mark, can you briefly describe your journey to becoming a writer and why you chose to write about Peter Cushing for your 3rd book, right in the middle?
Yes. Well, for starters, the last part of the question is I've always been a fan of Peter Cushing ever since I saw him in Doctor Who and the Daleks. Which I'll point out a little story that Frank Carolyn and myself went to see. You know, when at the Tyneside Cinema, there was a double bill of Doctor Who and the Daleks and Dalek Invasion. You were there? Great. So I was always a fan of this. I was always a movie fan. Everything, I just loved the movies. All kinds. The writing journey, well, I've always written in one form or another from school. English language and art was the only good things I was good at. I was hopeless with everything else. And so I've always written something to write stories and that kind of stuff. And I think the actual, I wrote reviews for Works magazines and so on, but to do something very serious, I used to go to the cinema just about all the time. What made me decide to do my writing journey began back in October 94, I think, October 94, when this gentleman died. And then suddenly I had an idea I wanted to write about, not just about him, but about the horror genre. I'm a bit of an expert on it, a bit of a film historian. And that started the journey, which was not the easiest of journeys. Because basically, I didn't have the particular book I had, which was, although a good idea, was unworkable. But then Cursed Horror Stars came to me, and how the genre, especially back then, was very unforgiving to the people who appeared, because typecasting back then was really appalling. It's not so much now. And then it's a case of, right, I had an idea. What the hell do I do next? We'll get it published. Yeah, all right. How do I do that? And it really was a bit of a strange journey, because I was there with just basically with a nice idea, going in completely blinkered, because I didn't know what to do. It took a long time for me to gradually try and get into the process of it until eventually the book was accepted, which I'm going to it was another question that it is. But I was fortunate enough to get involved with a writing retreat, which friend Andy's also part of, and that was a big help, because I went through periods of depression as well, and periods where I was saying, I can't do this. I really can't write. I was thinking, that's a stupid idea. I actually did have my moments where I said no, but I persevered. But the journey was it was a long one, not the best one, and there's also the fear of success as well. That's the question, and eventually it all came apart. And then after the first book got published, I was no looking back. And That's what it is. It was a difficult journey. I think every writer's got a different journey. Some easier than others, but mine was rather difficult because I just basically didn't know what the hell I was doing.
So it's a decade and 3 books published.
Yes.
Which is pretty amazing.
I celebrated my 50th year with Cursed Horror Stars, and then 5 years later, Vincent Price British Connection, and then I'll be 60 in August. So this came out, so it's like it's been quite an event doing that, because after the first book got published, and to be honest, Telos isn't a big publishers, they only have a small budget. So I just thought I could sit back and say, oh, let the money come in, I'll make millions. It's not going to happen. Maybe a million yen, or million euro, or something like that.
Million Canadian.
Oh, million Canadian, yes. A Canadian dollar at the moment is pretty not too great. That's why I'm paying for everything while she's here. I started doing talks and so on. I was very fortunate that the Castle Keep next door got me involved with several talks and movie screenings and so on. And that led me on to meet my dear friend Chris Phipps, who some people might know of. He's sadly no longer with us, but he was deeply involved with the Whitley Bay Film Festival. He got me involved in that, which was brilliant, and he got me involved with the Newcastle Book Festival. And this is all in the space of my, I just turned 50, it's the following 2016. Was a very busy time. I was doing all this stuff, and it was absolutely amazing. And this is for someone who's never been on before. And I've gradually done more stuff for the festival. I've done a few. I did a sci-fi weekend a couple of years back, which was absolutely amazing. Going on stage in front of about 300 or 400 nerds. And going.
Science fiction fans, I believe, is what they prefer to call.
I suppose so. Yes. Yeah, and even interviewing Madeline Smith. Who's heard of Madeline Smith? Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. I've met the nicest lady in the world, if you ever do get to meet her. And I've done all that, and it's been an amazing experience. Yes, it sold books as well, but it's not down to that. It was the fun of doing all that. And so I owe a lot to Telos and to what they've done for me, get the books in print. I'm doing my bit to vindicate their faith in me. So here I am, doing a second book. This is our second thing at HarKeTae. Yeah, I've got that we've done together. Yes.
Well, thank you, Mark, for giving a nice overview. So on to HarKeTae.
Okay.
It's your time. I'm very excited to hear about this. Can you tell us about your spiritual journey to this point and how you became a Wiccan high priestess? That sounds like a lot.
It's a lot.
Right?
Yeah, totally. Oh, where do I start? Really, I'm going to start when I was like 4 years old, and I would actually be prancing around the garden with a little wand and a little tutu. I remember this so clearly. And I would touch every flower that wasn't opened yet, and I said, open tomorrow and be pretty. And I was just like doing that. And
did it work?
Yeah, absolutely did. But and then as I kind of wandered through, my parents weren't into any kind of faith or anything like that. I went and joined church. I know, I'm looking at me now, you're just like, oh my goodness. So I went and joined church, and I actually became a preacher in the CFE church and an evangelist. I travelled all the way around the UK preaching the word of God. You know, things kind of turned around a little bit after a while. But whilst I was actually doing all of that, I was into my herbs, and I was always making like potions, if you like, but I was making salves and things to kind of to heal ourselves. And I was saying to the lady over there, like by the time I was 20, I had like 150 herbs in my garden just to make. Oh, that's a 20, you know. But it kind of grated when I was in church about certain things, because it's very patriarchal. You know, there wasn't a lot of space for women in church. Although I did go out and preach the word of God, it didn't allow me to do that. But that's how I felt, that they allowed me to do that, rather than it was like a kind of a calling and my whole life went completely tits up, not gonna lie. Slowly but surely, I kind of got into looking into other kind of spiritualities that wasn't Christianity, as it were, and it drew me into the occult. And when I kind of realised that actually my connection was actually far more with kind of the ideas that I had in my head, like the spirit is in all things. You know, the energies of all things are in everything.
Yeah.
And it's like a universal energy rather than a supreme being as such. And that kind of led me to really explore to where I am now. How I became a Wiccan priestess, or high priestess now, was because of the search, and I found somebody that happened to be, we went into like this mood thing, where pagans kind of all joined together and have a look, and he had just actually got his high priestessship, and started a training coven, that's what it's called, there's loads of different areas, and I joined that. So that's how come I kind of realised that I'm not really Wiccan as such. I'll go into it a bit later, into that a bit later on. And so I went through my 3 years of training, formal training of the and now I do all sorts of things. I do rituals, I do hand fastings, I do funerals, I do meditations, yeah. But basically, it's kind of looking at your inner energy, who you are as a person, and then exploring that and accepting who you are. A lot of people think that witchcraft and stuff is all about kind of all these spells and all that kind of stuff.
Like they saw the graph and then it worked.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people think it is. But actually, obviously there is a little bit of that involved, but it's more about kind of a day-to-day mindfulness. It's the best way to describe it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. What a journey, huh?
It's very, very different.
Yeah. But it's pretty normal for people to go from one religion to another.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you found your way to where you are now.
Yeah, and it definitely connects with me. You know, being connected with the nature, with the earth, with the elements around us, trees and plants and
Which is more important now than ever. It's harder.
Yeah, it's harder now. Yeah, totally. And yeah, so that's kind of my journey to there. I won't say that I've spoken a lot, but priestess of the priestess of Babylon. You see, I'll talk about that later.
Oh, more to come. Exciting. Well, thank you, Lucy. So we'll move on to our second set of questions. Mark, are you ready?
Ready.
Awesome. So if Peter Cushing were alive today, okay, and he read your book, all right? So he read the whole thing, Mark. He didn't even scan it. He read it. And you asked him for feedback. What do you think he would say?
It's a good one. It's a bit of a scary one. He thinks his ghost turns up because that happened at the
You may be here right now.
You may be here. It happened
In that corner.
My first talk at the Castle Keep was on Bela Lugosi, and a friend of mine who's into the paranormal was taking. He'd never been to the castle, but took loads of photos. What's this green apparition that was in front of them? I've had a close look, about 4 faces in there. Oh, Lugosi's got the whole thing. Now, Cushing, I can only base it on what he was like as a person. And he was very modest, very shy, but an absolute gentleman. You know, he was the type of chap who would, kiss a woman's hand in breathing. Didn't matter if she worked at Asda, it just was his nature. It was just an all-round gentleman. And I think I would like to think he would be thrilled at what I've written for. I'd like to think that. My one frustration thing about Cushing's life, although he's got a couple of really wonderful memoirs and so on, he talks very some about his work in the movies. And which I found frustrating. I'd like to know more about it if I could speak to him. Could you tell me about this actor or that? Ray Milan was an actor he worked with, a great footballer, Uncanny. But he never talks about him, even though he was in the time of, he was in Hollywood. He was one of, Ray Milan was one of the big stars of his time. I think it would be approval. We're not, I'm not dishing the dirt on the man. I'm not, there's not revealing any scandals or anything like that. So I like to think he would be happy with this. He would probably be happy on the slightly different take I put on the book compared to a normal autobiography. So that's what I think he would be. He'd be okay about it.
Well, Mark, when I ordered your book, I did look to see other books on Heather, and I would agree, your book is unique, and I think he would appreciate that you talked about his foreign film history. That's something that isn't always discussed at the length that you have.
Thank you. I mean, the best book on Cushing to me is written by David Miller, which is more extensive. His 2 volumes of autobiographies are enjoyable and well worth reading. He was certainly a wonderful storyteller. But he reveals very little about his career. So I would say, I would like the idea of a different take. It's similar to the Vincent Price book, again, a different take on what was probably going to be a standard autobiography. It's interesting, Cushing was the most British of actors, but he hated travelling abroad, and yet he had made a number of very interesting movies in his final years, which don't watch me if you find them on YouTube, please don't watch them, because I had to.
All in the name of research, huh?
In the name of research, I'll leave me, yes.
Well, thank you, Mark. All right. Thank you. So, we kind of brought this up earlier, talking about the craft, which was my song. I was 11 when that movie came out. I thought it was the best thing ever. But there's a lot of misconceptions, right? So there are a lot of misconceptions about the Wiccan faith or any of the stuff that you talked about. I know you weren't saying necessarily connected with Wiccanism, but other beliefs of the witches or whatever. Are there any particular ones that bug you and that you would like to provide more accurate information on?
There's quite blimey, there's hundreds.
What's the top ones that you wish people did?
I don't know, I've got about 90 down here, but...
probably will see in 30 minutes, but someone may
Find them, please.
But I think one of the biggest ones is, I think maybe more in the States than over here, perhaps. I don't know, you have to kind of say that. Is all Wiccans are witches and all witches are Wiccan.
Yes.
And that is really not the case. It really isn't at all. So what actually happens, I'm going to say this, it's quite out there anyway, but if you go through your Wiccan training and everything, as you go through that, you are then deemed priestess and witch. Okay, so technically, we're talking about proper formal, I say proper formal training, I don't say that exactly. Formal training would be coverings that have actually had like a little bit of lineage, should we say. So, even then, a lot of the people that go to Wicca would say, well, I'm actually not a witch at all, and they don't like the term, but some do. But also, there are witches that are Wiccan as well, and there's a lot of solo practitioners out there, particularly now. I mean, it's growing like so fast. And one of the reasons why we thought it might be a good idea to do this was because within the horror movies, it's like it's used throughout the whole thing, like about how witches are evil and nasty beings and all this kind of stuff, and then they always work with the devil. Now that's another misconception, is actually, as a pagan, I don't believe in the devil. That's a Christian concept. So
That's
for
an
me,
interesting point. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, if somebody says, "Well, you're going straight to hell," no, I'm going to the other world, because my life is going to be continuing now, and I will actually be reborn at some point, and I will keep on being reborn, becoming a better version of myself in the future. So that's another big misconception about this devil. Christianity, I don't want to say that too loud. Christianity right, has a lot to answer for, I think, coming from my whole background and everything as well, which I'm actually going to be writing a book at some time, and it's the occult and Christianity roots. I'm in the throes of actually doing that at the moment. If you look at some of the stuff, I'm divulging, I'm beaming off a little bit here. But you know, you can actually see some of the Platonism kind of ideas coming in through Christianity and that, as well as some of other early Greek philosophers as well. And so that's quite interesting. Let's have a look at another one I've got here. Yeah, so do you have to be initiated into a Wiccan covenant to talk about Wicca? Right? You don't have to be initiated, you can self-initiate yourself. There's so much work and so many books out there now, it's no longer a secret, to be honest with you. And if you look at Gerald Gardner's work, then you can kind of self-initiate. And you can actually, anybody can call themselves a high priest or a high priestess now, whether they've done the training or not. Yeah. But we're all kind of on a spiritual journey. So for me, personally, it's all about kind of this spiritual journey. A lot of people think that Wicca or other paganism is all about sex and infertility and which of course it is. No, but no. Yeah, totally. It's kind of, for me, it's a spiritual process. It's about seeing the divine in everything, and that's where my my Babylonian priestessship comes into it. Particularly because that's more matriarchal than patriarchal. So that's kind of totally the other way. We don't totally exclude fellas from it. We recognise the masculine and the feminine in everything, and that we live in a duality, but it does place a little bit more emphasis on women and our needs and our, dare I say, feelings.
Our journey.
Our journey, yeah, and it places more kind of emphasis on that side of things. But what I really love about it is the it's like the Babylonian tradition of King Arthur in there, and looking into the Welsh goddesses, and researching the Mabinogi, which is a beautiful book. If you've never read it, it's a beautiful, beautiful book of old Welsh tales of myth and intrigue and magic, and a lot of Arthurian legend is actually in there, believe it or not. I'm trying to think of this. Can I just say one more thing? Is that okay? Yes. And I'm going to read this if you don't mind, because I'll get it wrong otherwise. So I've got all my notes down here. But one thing I do want to say is, and it's not really more of a misconception, but it's more of a worry on my part. It kind of goes back to your question earlier. That Wicca and other spiritual paths, I feel, are just becoming like a tool for fame and money. You see all of these shops just picking up now. We actually call them fluffy shops. Because it is. It's all about selling like little tiny crystals, selling stuff made out of resin. You know, how bad is resin for the environment? You know, I try to live, and a lot of us try to live our lives as neutral density as possible, if that's the word for it. But do you know what I mean? That carbon neutral. And I advocate for us looking after the world. You know, and all of these people are not doing that. So this is becoming a real trouble. I'm going to read this, sorry, so that I'm getting it concise. And there's a growing spiritual exploitation that is going on at the moment. And we don't just see that in kind of paganism or Wicca or anything like that. It's just in spirituality in general. So, but there's a lot of appropriation going on. So for shamanism, for instance, one of the big things you might see is the cacao ceremonies that are going on at the moment. And a lot of people are actually sort of saying that it's fine to do that, but it's from the wild rainforest. It's for women only, and actually generally it's country as well. But should we really be appropriating other people's faiths and ideas and using white sage, for instance, to actually cleanse spirits and stuff like that? You know, that is
making it into a trend.
And I stand before you here actually saying 100%. I'm not bluffing. I live this. Every day I do whatever I do, but also I lead rituals for people. I help people to see their own personal strength that they have, the divine feminine that lives within them, or divine masculine, and build on that strength that every one of us has in us. I'm powerful, it is really powerful, and that's what I live for. Every day. I'm going to touch you.
Thank you for sharing. And Mark, may I ask the kindness of you? Do you mind closing the drapes?
They are
I
closed.
don't know. Are they closed?
They are closed, yeah.
I don't know if it'll make a difference. I know the noise is loud. I'm thinking of my friends at the back. Sorry. Okay. I don't know if that curtain will make a whole difference, but thank you, Lucy. That was a really beautiful review of also like where our assumptions come from and where they're really enrooted with, and that's a deeper conversation you and I will have later. But I think but I think it's really valid. So thank you for sharing all of that. So we'll do our last formal questions. Mark,
Yes.
are you ready?
Yes.
No. All right. If someone came to you and said, I want to be a writer and have 3 books published, just like you, what 3 pieces of advice would you give them? 3 pieces of advice. No, stop, right? Yeah.
Well, firstly, with what HarKeTae says, it just reminded me when I went to see a screening of Witchfinder General at the Castle Keep. And we had a lovely lady called Jo Bath. So you know Jo, don't you? And she was very informative. She's a historian and she's a bit of an expert on the English Civil War. And she told me that before the English Civil War, witches, I don't mean to be demeaning and saying witches, but were never ever persecuted or burned at the stake during the same sense before that. So I can say that the historical accuracy of Monty Python and Holy Grail is totally out the window. He did not burn witches. What happened was, it was a case of English Civil War, law and order had broken down, the laws were put in the hands of magistrates, and people saying, she's a witch, and then they go to torture her, she's a witch, and hang her. It was basically, that was what's happened, that's how they were persecuted. It was very misogynistic. I mean, Matthew Hopkins only executed 1 man through hanging, because he was a witch. That's for all women. You can get burnt at the stake, by the way, if you murdered your husband. But you didn't have to be a witch to do that. It's like misogynistic society when you think about it.
Are we talking about right?
I don't know. I want to go on about the misnomer about what it was like, and horror films do paint a dark side.
We will do writing tips.
Writing tips. Writing tips. Looking for his work. Yeah, I would say if you're thinking of like, just do it. Try and you've got an idea, write. And it's just a case of simply don't give up. Don't give up. Again, a brief story of Roger Ellery, R.J. Ellery, who writes American crime fiction. And I saw him do a talk, and he said himself he gave up writing for a while because it wasn't good enough. But then he kind of realised, I can do this. I don't want to end up in my hospital bed, not dying, not really doing that. And he wrote 22 novels before his 23rd got published. And that really inspired me to say, yes, I can do this. Someone asked him, did you ever get your $22 published? He said, no, they're not good enough. Which is kind of interesting. So I'd say, just keep at it, don't give up. And if you can get as much help as possible, the third thing, one, do it, you want to write, really believe it, believe in yourself, do it. Secondly, don't give up, keep on doing it. Ask for advice, meet writers who will help you.
And where did you go to meet writers?
Okay, I bet it's many.
But there's one place specifically.
Oh yes, any aspiring writers, please. Okay, well, you're half aspiring now because you're getting there, aren't you? I found it out in the Writing magazine, which you can get from W. Smith's or even on Tesco. The Swanwick Writers Retreat. There was others, but I don't know why this piqued my interest. It was a case of, it's a place where there's lots of, there's lots of tuition courses and so on within the space of a week down in Derbyshire. It's a nice little village as well. And you also get the chance of meeting guest writers who do talk about Roger Ellery as an example. Peter James was another example, and Heather and me went to see Beauty and Dead at the Theatre Royal. So he was a chap I'd met. And these people, you can do one-on-ones with them, and I think, and somehow there's a lot of positivity when you're there. I mean, it's fun, there's discos. I ran a buskers night there for years, which is still going. So I've been for the last couple of years. And all that, and it's, and I think somehow it helps to inspire you.
I mean, with like-minded people, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of beginners, plenty of established writers. I came in knowing, not having a clue, like I said, when I began, I didn't have a clue. And I thought this was a possible step forward, which unfortunately it wasn't. So for me, I would say, you want to write, do it. Secondly, don't give up on it, and just get as much into it as possible by going to these retreats. It doesn't have to be that one, it could be others, and try and meet other writers and get inspired. I think if you've got an idea for a book, you've got to try and follow it through. I came close to giving up several times, but something inside me said I had to do it. So that's what I would say, keep on it.
Yes. Really good advice.
Thank you very much. I mean, sorry about the thing, I just really got one.
Yeah, I know, you're passionate.
Very passionate, very passionate. I'm very passionate
That's
about
how
Lucy
you're a
believes.
writer.
Yeah, very passionate about what Lucy believes in as well, because it's easy to say, oh, it's all very silly. It isn't. I don't think it is. It's not. I don't want to demean it like that.
No.
People do think that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, our final question for yourself. So, if someone like would be interested in learning more about faith, or even just what you talked about in general, the whole practice. Yeah, really connecting back with nature and energy. I love the energy talk. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
How would you suggest I get started on that journey?
Yeah, everyone just go to TikTok. No, don't do that. Don't do that. My goodness.
Let's go to my local crystal shop.
Yeah.
TikTok's those little sweets that I used to get.
That's right.
No, I'm not going to totally diss social media, because social media does have a good place actually, but there are a lot of fluffies and a lot of people that are just in, dare I say it, AI now.
Yeah.
They put in one thing and they say blah blah blah, and then AI spits it out, and then people are believing what they're actually saying as being logical, and it's just not the case, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bit of a trudge, but to try and find somebody that is kind of walking the faith. That's what you've got to look for. If you're looking for something, whether it's Wiccan or whether it's Druidic, I'm actually what they call Druid craft. So I am half Druid and half Wiccan, I think.
You're getting cooler as the night goes.
Yeah, that's why I kind of wear white like before.
Yeah.
So, in everybody's area, and I do mean pretty much everybody's area, and you won't know this unless you don't know, but there are things called moots. And in a moot is where pagan people get together. It could be once a month or whatever. In Newcastle, there's about 20 of them. Yeah, no, I just saw your face there. Yeah, no, exactly. It's just like, that's bonkers, isn't it? there? Yeah. So there's 4 moods that I go to, 2 of them I run. So, and that way you can get to meet other people if you're just even searching or want to do that. And that's actually probably one of the best and the easiest ones because they are actually living and walking the talk, as it were. Not everybody obviously is high priestess or priestess walking, but there is usually one in there. I probably should have said that, but there is usually one. We're not allowed to is it called proselytize? That's the word.
Yeah.
I got it right.
You nailed it.
Yeah. So we're not allowed to proselytize. So yeah, if you want to go and find, that's probably the best way of doing it. Look for real people and meet them face to face.
Kind of similar with Mark, meet writers.
Yeah. It's interesting what you make about AI, because that's certainly affecting the publishing world as well. Because you can write something in the same style as D.H. Lawrence or something like that. I think it is frowned upon by writers anyway, and in the publishing world. You never know something, but it is an issue, which I suppose AI is like CGI. You have fun with it, but I do think sometimes there's a darker side of AI.
Well, you want to have creativity.
Yes, I mean, you can't take away the craftsmanship of anything. To be a writer, a musician, or an artist, or even any kind of a religious belief like this, or a Wiccan belief. There's creativity all over the place. AI is technical, but that's it. And I'm not a fan of it too much.
Yeah.
I am, because I work at a university, so I can talk about AI.
Yeah.
I've had a different experience.
AI drives me bonkers.
It has helped me write emails. Just
Yeah,
that are challenging. I'm not gonna
yeah.
lie. But in terms of research and in terms of writing, I agree. It is not a reliable tool.
No,
It should be a tool, not a
No.
people. You can't replace people,
No,
right? People that you want to talk to and connect with,
That's the important thing,
Yes.
isn't it? It's about connection, isn't it?
which is what we're doing tonight.
Yeah. It's all about connection. You can't do that with AI.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to both of you for sharing your wisdom, your experience with everybody. Is there any, we'll open it up to questions in just a second, but is there anything you'd like to share about where people can buy your books? I know your books are here.
Yeah, I make it on the
Yes, they are here. They're £15. I'll sign them. I shall sign it for each and every one. If you don't have the money, and I only accept cash, you can get them through Talos Publishing. They actually specialise in cult movies and television and so on, and they also deal with, if you like, your novels, dark fantasy and horror. So you've got a bit of that. So it's a really, really good book. Yes?
Amazon as
I was
well.
going to say Amazon.
Did you hear earlier?
Yes, thank you. I mentioned the publishers first. Then I say yeah. So you bought them from Amazon, didn't you? No,
I bought it from Amazon Canada because I was going to pay the shipping.
Yeah, no.
Quite right too.
I said, I would have paid for that too.
Yes, that's right. Well, thank you, Mark. And yourself, I know you have art that you do. We don't have anything today, but would you like to share anything about where people can purchase that or see it?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm also a landscape artist. So last year, Mark and I did a similar sort of thing, where we meet the writer, meet the author, meet the artist.
You're the media artist.
Yeah.
Which I think a couple of you have been to as well. So yeah. 2 of you. Or 4. This was again, that was a lot of fun. And also, just to do that, although these have been Breakfast friends for years, we finally met here.
It was here.
Yes, because she's also, we both play bass guitar. Well, she plays bass guitar, I just try. And that's where, with Mark, they were both kitschy retro, as they call themselves. So that's how we met properly. So, we became mates ever since.
Yeah.
Is it a website you have?
So there's several ways. So my name is HarKeTae. So HarKeTae. Okay. That's the only profile that I'm on Facebook now because they deleted my Lucy Dawlish one. Okay, so I'm a Lucy Dawlish or Lucy D Studios. which you can kind of find, but it's best to kind of see any work that I'm doing, like art-wise or photography-wise as well, on there. But you'll also see, be able to connect with me if you want to, obviously, as this. But if you want to look a little bit deeper and you want to find some like moon rituals that you can do by yourself, things like that, then the place to look is Cody's Circle on Facebook. So,
Which I am a member of.
you are a member,
Yeah.
I'm a member as well, yeah. And so Cody's Circle, I run circles across the northeast for people to come and explore, and it's more kind of to do with like getting rid of negative energies and bringing in positivity in your own life and looking to the future and setting a few kind of things to work towards.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much to both of you. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask? Oh, wow. The gentleman with the hat and the lovely glasses.
That's a big question. What's the next book going to be?
Oh!
I've got an idea for a book. I'm not going to say give too much away. I came across I'll call it a eureka of an idea whilst I was working on
It's a
the
great idea, Mike.
It is, yeah. I mean, Cody, a couple of people know, and I think it will work, but I can't give anything away to actually start. However, I do write for a magazine called We've Been On Dead. There are several books coming out, which I've contributed to. If you want to, that will fill the void until the next book sells. So yeah, it is. I've got a great idea. I've actually Heather very kindly brought me a wonderful notebook with the House on Haunted Hill written on it, and I actually wrote the entire book. Well, like notes, longhand, and the idea bloody well works. I think I can do it. But until then, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait.
Is that not House on the Haunted Hill?
It's a funny movie, by the way. It's a great film.
So, question to Mark.
Yes,
What's
sorry.
the legacy left by Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, and Christopher Lee to A, the horror genre, and B, cinema, world cinema?
I think that's a good question. It's an excellent question because it's longevity. You know, when you think of how many big Hollywood stars have suddenly disappeared, you know, nobody's heard of them and so on. I think they were fortunate enough that people will still remember them. Maybe because of the horror movies. I'll give an example of Vincent Price. You know, he was a big star in Hollywood, but by the time he was getting into the middle age, like a lot of actors were going into smaller supporting roles. And suddenly, you know, he was offered the chance, well, he did The House of Wax, but some years later, William Castle offered him to play The House on Haunted Hill, because it was basically, teenagers love horror movies. And that's what happened for a guy who was like, by that time, already approaching 50, suddenly he found himself a big star for another 10, 15 years. And same with Cushing. I mean, Cushing did Star Wars, I mean, people always remember him for that. And it's the same thing with Cushing. He was in his 40s when The Curse of Frankenstein came out. Now, Christopher Lee's more interesting. Yes, we all remember Dracula. But I think the irony is people forget about Dracula. You remember him as Saruman and Count Dooku and all the Tim Burton movies, and he became a big star from that. That Dracula's kind of been pushed out of the way. But he basically suddenly in late old age, he suddenly become a massive star again. So his is a bit more interesting. I think it's just people remember them. Whereas, I mean, we look at The Man in the Iron Mask, which is Cushing's first film. The actor who played Lord Channing was Warren Williams. It was a big name. Who the hell's over him now? Very few. Lewis Hayward was a bit more better known actor. People like that. Still him, but it's very good. And the genre was very good to them. I think.
If I can add to that, right? Do you not think that has a lot to do with the horror community? I
Yes.
find in the horror community, whether you love the 40s, the 20s, me, I love modern horror. Last Night in Soho, Ricky Bateman loves Marchnik, it's excellent. Do you think that has to do with the horror community just loving their horror?
I would say so, yes, because you know we have horror conventions like Sci-Fi Weekender, where you know people can make personal appearances and so on, and that's through that both old and new horror films have got a cult following. I say, you know, when I'm going to
horror
something
fans are loyal.
very loyal. They're loyal to their films, they're loyal to their stars. I mean, I'm going to see Norwich in July for a special screening of Witchfinder General at your on box with two Vincent Price movies. Now, I'll meet Madeline Smith again.
You're going to go to Norwich?
Norwich, yes. Back in July, 27th of July, I think. I'll check it out. And I'll be meeting Madeline Smith again. I'll be meeting Sally Geeson, who remembers her? And I'll be meeting Ian Ogilvy. Yes, oh yes, the same thing. So, and these people, although, you know, we haven't acted in a while, they are still popular. They're still because of these movies. The good, the bad, even bad movies that get a big following, because, I don't know why.
Community strong.
It's a very strong community. Sci-fi is just as strong as well.
Any other questions? And of course, at the back.
Mark, have you ever been to the Peter Cushing Museum in Kent?
I have, many, many moons ago.
What's it like?
Very good. You get on his displays, his makeup bag.
Oh,
All this stuff that he took with him to whatever locations or filming and so on.
it's worth going.
Yes, there's also Witherspoon's pub called the Peter Cushing.
I'll give that to you.
And not far is the Tudor tea rooms where he always had his lunch in his
Honestly,
during
it's where I went for lunch.
yeah, he always went for lunch. Everybody loved him. You can ask a taxi driver, you can ask a shop assistant. They all remembered him. They all loved him. And he was such a gentleman. There's also Cushing View, which was a bench that was donated to the council, and of course his house, which did fall into disrepair and has been refurbished, and I think it's gone for a really, really good price. I didn't get to see the house though,
No.
but yeah, I did go to the museum.
Great.
Yes. See some of his watercolours as well, because people think he was a very good watercolour artist. And so yeah, long time ago actually, yeah.
Any other questions? But we'll be around. These two will be happy to answer any questions you have one-on-one.
Oh yes, we are. Yes.
Or not. I don't know, maybe they will then. Thank you so much. I know we went past our 30 minutes, but thank you so much for your attention. It's been a pleasure, and thank you to our two wonderful guests.
Yeah, thank you.
I would have to say it's been a big support for me, especially with the third book, and so on. Because I had some serious health problems with my eyes, which was not a great thing. And Friday Night Mass podcast is a wonderful podcast to listen to. It's sort of like, and
If
it's
you
nice.
like horror movies.
If you like horror movies. Well, it's also a good learning curve if you did. But anyway, we arranged it. Let's say she didn't come all the way from to be here.
I've been here.
We agreed that, you know, Heather's been visiting me for the last few years now, and she said, I want a book launch. Can I be at your book launch if you do organise one and all that? I said, yeah. And what we said was, and we chatted, Lucy and I chatted about this. I keep saying, sorry.
It's all right, call me Lucy, it's fine.
Lucy by day, HarKeTae by night, you know. And we just said, right, let's get her involved. I think she deserved to be involved. So I'm going to say she's done a very, very good job hosting. Give her a round. So I don't think I'll be buying her drinks because obviously the Canadian dollar's not very good at the UK.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Put you on the spot.
Oh, go on.
Out of the three greats,
Yeah.
which one would you prefer to sit and have a pipe with?
That's me.
That's all.
You're only allowed one.
You know what? It's a difficult one
Yeah.
because I'm not really a big fan of Christopher Lee. I've got to be honest. I like him enough to know he's a great storyteller, but he's not a raconteur. And he is very serious. You know, he gets out straight away. It's a case of, I would say, no disrespect to Peter Cushing, who I think would be a wonderful conversation. He is a raconteur.
Yes.
He is great, but he doesn't drink. Vinny, on the other hand, was a real raconteur. You've seen him on TV being interviewed and so on, and he did like it. Well, he did like a drink, and I'd say, with his, you know, as well as his career as an art expert as well, and he also produced cookbooks. He's a gourmet chef. So actually, I think having dinner with him would be a great. I'd have him as a cooking. I would go for Vinny.
That was tricky.
No disrespect to I would say Vinny was the man I would definitely have a drink with, and believe me, he'd probably buy everybody around.
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, his ghost might come down later. That's one of the best questions I had. That's a good one.
Thank you. I think